are the Ukrainians committing genocide? I ask you.
What's that got to do with Israel?
Well, many wars going on.
Yeah.
Is Ukraine committing genocide?
No.
Right.
Is Russia committing genocide?
Russia is committing a war of hostile aggression, for sure. There are repercussions for Hamas for starting a war against Israel.
But there are repercussions for an illegal occupation.
What's the illegal occupation?
Of Israel against the Palestinians.
Where?
That is an illegal occupation.
Where?
It is a determined illegal occupation.
Gaza?
Of course, Gaza and the West Bank.
Have you been to Gaza?
Yes, I have.
Is it occupied by the Israelis?
It's completely sealed off, as you know. That's why they call it by the Israelis.
And who?
By the Israelis, by the US, and whoever else supports the Israelis. Isn't that enough?
No, tell me who else is allegedly sealing the Gaza. There's an illegal occupation of Gaza. Why did you say that?
Because there is.
Why? Well, who
Israel
is occupying
is an occupying state.
No.
It is internationally recognized.
No, it's not. It's not at all.
I want to move on.
That's your view. Hang on, that's your view, and I have to correct your view.
Our views
I have
differ.
to correct. No, it doesn't. The facts, our views might differ, but the facts are the facts, and I want to pick you up on something you just did.
I'm interviewing you.
I know, but I think you're uninformed.
No.
So let me. You are uninformed because
really?
First of all, you didn't say that Egypt is blockading Gaza. Secondly, you claim that Israel...
I'm talking about Israel here, and I want to move...
It's very convenient for you to mention Israel because you've clearly got an animus here. But let me come on to the second point. Israel took every Jew from Gaza in 2005, handed it over to the Palestinians, who then voted in Hamas, and to the great detriment of the Palestinian people, they have been ruled by Hamas for the last 18 years. If you want to look to the source of the conflict, look to that.
Douglas Murray took down the anti-Israel female journalist, exposing her as a hypocrite right in a live interview. Murray spoke out about what he considered biased and ignorant journalism surrounding the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, especially regarding Gaza and Hamas.
Every time there would be a peace agreement, settlements would pop up. And that's why we are where we are today.
No, it's not.
So let's try and move on. Let's try and move on.
It's not at all why we are where we are.
Hang on. We're not achieving anything here, so let's try and move on.
No.
Let's try and move on.
No, it's very, because you just did it again. You just threw in another false fact. We are not where we are today because of settlements in the West Bank that are disputed. That's not why Hamas broke out of Gaza on the 7th of October and massicared people in their homes.
As we know,
that's
Hamas
not because of the West Bank, and you well know it. You well know that.
And
you well know that Hamas did not commit the massacre of the 7th of October because of settlements. They did it by their own admission because they want to massacre every Jew they can get their hands on, and Hamas has said they will do it again and again. So don't get onto the distraction of settlements. That is a second-order priority. The first order...
It's easy to fob those off, isn't it?
It's easy for you to try to distract people about it. But I'm saying, don't distract them from the crimes of Hamas. Don't do that.
I'm not distracting.
Well, you are. You just said that's why they did it. You said they did it because of the settlements.
And those crimes by Hamas were repugnant.
I'm glad you said that, finally.
Finally. The settlements are not the cause of the conflict in Gaza, but the crimes of Hamas. Murray exposed the journalist's anti-Israel bias, dropping a truth bomb that left her speechless.
In popularity ever since this war on Gaza, because Israel is making people more and more increasingly militant. So what is happening at the moment?
Israel's making people more militant.
Is not working.
Do you think that Hamas is making people more militant or not?
Let's go back to the ICJ.
Do you think that Hamas is making people more militant or not?
Well, it's a catch-22.
Oh, I see.
And I mean, until this illegal occupation is broken, until the suffering of the Palestinians is acknowledged.
Do you think that Hamas are interested in a solution where there's any Jew in that region or not?
I'm asking you the questions, and I want to
I'd love you to answer that one.
No, we can answer it. Let's just move on.
Have a go then.
Okay. So
have a go. Do you think Hamas want a peaceful solution with the Jews?
I'm asking you the questions. We can discuss this afterwards.
Oh no, I'd love to do this one on air. Beside the Jews, yes or no?
they have recently said that they would be happy to live next to Jews, but they want a two-state solution. A two-state solution has been in the offing.
Hamas has not said they want a two-state solution. They carried out a massacre on October the 7th of as many people as they could, stole a lot of hostages who you still also haven't referred to. There's more than 100 Jewish hostages still in Gaza. That's a real kidnapping, and that's real occupation of somebody. And Hamas has said they do it again and again.
How do you feel when you see those children who've been shot in the back of the head? How do you feel when you see those children?
The Jewish children or the Palestinian children?
The Palestinian children.
I feel the same on each of them. I think it's all a tragedy.
Okay, good.
And I think
it's
all on Hamas.
Both sides.
I think
so
it's
let's
all
try
on
and move
Hamas.
on.
They shouldn't have started a war.
There's
consequences to starting a war.
Douglas Murray's analysis of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict emphasizes the role of both Israel and Hamas in escalating military activity. He emphasized Hamas's rejection of the two-state solution and the tragic humanitarian consequences of the ongoing violence. Murray calls for a nuanced understanding of the conflict, recognizing its complexity and the need for balanced and informed perspectives. But perhaps this female journalist cannot meet what he wants.
Read some of your comments about our move to, taking Israel to the ICJ, and you said that we did that in order to hide the problems at home.
In any country, you have first-order priorities. Getting the water clean, getting the roads running, getting infrastructure working, getting healthcare working, getting education. Those first-order priorities, if a government fails at them, it does distraction techniques. I think the ICJ thing is a distraction technique. I don't think it's something which is of primary importance to the people of South Africa. I don't think it's a first-order priority for the voters. And I'm suspicious when governments pull these kinds of international tricks.
Don't you think somebody had to do it?
Oh, not at all. I mean, there's an awful lot of things going on in the world. I've covered an awful lot of conflicts. I don't think that at all that what's happening in Gaza is genocide. I think it's an unbelievable smear against Israel. I've covered that war, as I've covered many others.
Don't you think it's a self-inflicted smear against Israel?
No, I mean, I was in Ukraine last year. Are the Ukrainians committing genocide? I ask you.
What's that got to do with Israel?
Many wars going on.
Yeah.
Is Ukraine committing genocide?
No.
Right.
Is Russia committing genocide?
Russia is committing a war of hostile aggression, for sure. Although it doesn't seem to be attempting to eradicate the Ukrainian population as a whole, which is, of course, what genocide is.
Which is what Israel...
The allegation of genocide against Israel, why would Israel be committing genocide in Gaza?
Well, what would you describe it?
It's a war. It's which I've seen up close.
Okay.
So let me just explain that. If you start a war, which is what Hamas did on the 7th of October, if you start a war, there are repercussions. There are repercussions to Russia for starting a war against Ukraine. Russia's lost a lot of troops. There are repercussions for Hamas for starting a war against Israel.
So do you think there are repercussions for an illegal occupation?
What's the illegal occupation?
Of Israel against the Palestinians.
Where?
That is an illegal occupation.
Where?
It is a determined illegal occupation.
Gaza?
Of course, Gaza and the West Bank.
Have you been to Gaza?
Yes, I have.
Is it occupied by the Israelis?
It's completely sealed off.
Douglas Murray argues against the narrative that Israel is committing genocide in Gaza. He emphasized that this is a complex and tragic conflict, not a genocide. Murray argues that Israel's actions in Gaza do not meet the definition of genocide. Instead, he emphasized that Israel is engaged in a defensive war against Hamas, a terrorist organization that has repeatedly attacked Israeli civilians. Murray emphasizes the context in which conflict arises. He pointed out that Hamas, which controls Gaza, has a history of launching rockets into Israel and carrying out terrorist attacks against Israeli civilians. In this context, Israel's military actions are portrayed as defensive measures aimed at protecting its citizens from ongoing threats.
As you know, that's why they call it by the Israelis.
And who?
By the Israelis, by the US, and whoever else supports
and who else?
The Israelis. Isn't that enough?
No, tell me who else is allegedly sealing the Gaza.
I'm saying that Israel has completely encircled Gaza. Nothing goes in, nothing goes out, as you know.
Well, as you know, if you've been, Gaza also has a border with Egypt. Why do you not mention Egypt? Egypt has a stronger fence to fence in the people of Gaza.
Okay, so you agree that Gaza has been fenced off?
Why do you say there's an illegal occupation of Gaza? Why did you say that?
Because there is.
Why? Well, who
Israel
is occupying
is an occupying state.
No.
It is internationally recognized.
No, it's not. It's not at all.
I want to move on.
That's your view. Hang on, that's your view, and I have to correct your view.
Our views
I have
differ.
to correct. No, it doesn't. The facts, our views might differ, but the facts are the facts, and I want to pick you up on something you just did.
I'm interviewing you.
I know, but I think you're uninformed.
No.
So let me. You are uninformed because
really?
First of all, you didn't say that Egypt is blockading Gaza. Secondly, you claim that Israel.
I'm talking about Israel here, and I want to move.
It's very convenient for you to mention Israel because you've clearly got an animus here. But let me come on to the second point.
Israel surrounds Gaza. Journalists correct the conflict. The historical context of the Israeli army's removal of Jewish families from Gaza in 2005. Douglas Murray regularly corrects misconceptions about the Israeli conflict, Palestine, including the history and context of Israel's actions in Gaza. Murray acknowledged that Israel controls the border around Gaza, but he emphasized that this was a security measure, not an act of aggression. The blockade was implemented in response to continuous rocket fire and terrorist attacks originating from Gaza. The aim is to prevent the smuggling of weapons and materials that could be used to attack Israeli civilians. The withdrawal of troops in 2005 was a pivotal moment. Israel withdrew its military and civilian presence in the hope this would lead to a more peaceful relationship. Instead, the power vacuum was filled by Hamas, leading to increased hostility. Murray clarified that the measures taken by Israel were defensive. The blockade is intended to limit the flow of weapons to Hamas and not let Gazans starve to death. While defending Israel's right to self-defense, Murray does not dismiss the humanitarian issues in Gaza. He acknowledges that the situation is dire and that Gazans suffer significantly. However, he places the responsibility on Hamas for prioritizing military aggression over the well-being of its population. Murray argues that international aid is often misused by Hamas, further exacerbating the plight of ordinary Gazans.
As you well know, in 2005, Israeli troops ripped Jewish families from their home in the Gaza.
That was after Palestinians had been ripped from their homes in Gaza.
I mean, how far back do you want to go? You can do the Hebron massacre of 1924 if you want.
Absolutely.
But let me finish.
What I want to talk about. What I want to talk about is we're talking about the action at the International Court of Justice. Okay.
But first of all, before we go on to that, you've got to inform your viewers. Yes, but we've got to inform your viewers of the facts, and you just misled them. In 2005, Israeli troops ripped every Jewish family from their homes in Gaza and handed over all of Gaza, which was completely clear of Jews.
That was after two Nakbas, I think in 1948 and 1967, when Palestinians were ripped from their homes that were originally there.
That's your
I know, so let's
specific interpretation of the history, and yours is a very no. But we can agree to disagree, but don't misinform your viewers. And
Likewise.
you can go back. I'm not misinforming your viewers. I'm informing them because you're not. The point that I'm trying to make, which
Israel
you keep
moved away from Gaza, and Gaza has been sealed off ever since.
You keep on trying to distract everyone from is that Israel took every Jew from Gaza in 2005, handed it over to the Palestinians, who then voted in Hamas, and to the great detriment of the Palestinian people. They have been ruled by Hamas for the last 18 years. If you want to look to the source of the conflict, look to that fact.
With the unilateral withdrawal of troops in 2005, Israel dismantled 21 settlements in Gaza and evacuated more than 8,000 Jewish residents. The withdrawal includes the withdrawal of the Israel Defense Forces, IDF, from the area. In the 2006 Palestinian legislative election, Hamas won a majority of seats. Hamas took full control of Gaza in 2007 after violent clashes with Fatah, the Palestinian opposition. Under Hamas rule, Gaza has faced numerous conflicts with Israel, resulting in destruction and significant loss of life. Hamas's rule is characterized by a focus on military actions against Israel, rather than the development and well-being of the Palestinian people. The situation in Gaza has led to serious humanitarian problems, exacerbated by the blockade imposed by Israel and Egypt to prevent the smuggling of arms to Hamas. This resulted in the election of Hamas and its subsequent rule, leading to repeated conflicts with Israel, resulting in devastating impacts on civilians in Gaza. Hamas's prioritization of military operations over civilian governance has significantly hindered the prospects for peace and development in Gaza. The blockade and frequent military confrontations have made living conditions in Gaza more tense, causing widespread suffering among the Palestinian people. Douglas Murray has exposed what he sees as journalists' hypocrisy and ignorance when discussing conflicts such as Gaza and historical contexts such as apartheid South Africa. Murray points out that journalists express selective outrage. They condemn Israel for its actions in Gaza, while ignoring or downplaying far worse human rights abuses elsewhere in the world. He emphasized that the media often oversimplifies the story, portraying Israel as the aggressor without acknowledging the constant threats it faces from groups such as Hamas. Murray criticized journalists for routinely ignoring or underreporting the actions and intentions of Hamas. The female journalist drew parallels between Israel's policy towards Palestinians and the apartheid regime in South Africa. Murray challenges these comparisons, arguing that they are not only historically inaccurate, but also ignore the unique circumstances of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict.